I recommend the board discuss and take legal action, if any, on a challenge to the recent executive order and or emergency rules of the State Board of Education and our Department of Health relating to COVID. General Counsel? No, I don't need a motion yet.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me first say that the action that the board has taken to date has been within the board's constitutional authority, which is to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of students. There are at least, at the moment, 10 school boards that have exercised this same constitutional authority, and the numbers of those school boards are climbing. Today, I'm asking that the board vote to give me the authority to engage outside counsel to provide the board advice and discuss strategy on all issues, including but not limited to constitutional, statutory, and regulatory issues regarding the school board's mask mandate and representation of the school board in all pending cases and any future cases that the school board may file, join, collaborate, intervene in, or defend in any forum. Of course, it is my intention to keep the board informed of any action taken before it is taken, but I'm asking this that it is without the need to have to come back to the board before moving forward if it is determined and agreed by the outside counsel and myself at my direction that the action is necessary. Over the next week, we may find that time is of the essence, and there may not necessarily be an opportunity to bring it back in time to the board.
Board members, I need a motion in order to start discussion. Motion by Mrs. Whitfield, seconded by Mrs. McQuinn. What's your motion, Mrs. Whitfield?
Sorry, I'd like to move that we authorize general counsel to approve getting outside counsel to work on any of our legal needs as they come up.
Mrs. McQuinn, that's your second on that? Okay. Discussion? Sir, the public portion is over with. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. You didn't hear the rules at the beginning, but if you speak out again, you'll have to leave the room. Is there discussion, board members? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Superintendent, POL GC1.
I recommend the board approve development of proposed revised policy 1.03 school board meetings.
Motion by Mrs. Andrews, seconded by Ms. Ayala. Discussion?
Thank you. I wanted to bring this up really to discuss some of the things that have been mentioned earlier today, so I appreciate my fellow board members having the same concerns that I did. I'm very worried about the decorum in the meetings. I think that we should ask general counsel, as we're going forward with this policy, to add a part in there about the decorum so that we include that into our policy. Specifically, what I would like to have included is a piece about curse words being used by members of the public, words that are degrading to really anyone. I don't think should be allowed to be continued on when we are having a recording or any person in public. And finally, I really did not like last week when one of our staff members was called out by name. I think there's a lot of things you can say to us, but I really do take offense to someone talking about our staff members. That was hard for me because I feel like our staff is working very, very hard, and I would like to stand up for them. So I would like to ask through this policy as we go forward, if we can ask general counsel to put some bits in there that would really support us during these meetings to make sure that we remember this is a school district. Children watch these meetings. I would really like to elevate the level of discussion and really protect everyone within the comments that are made. Thank you.
Ms. Ayala.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the policy that's in front of us today, I agree with everything that's on it. And again, thank the General Counsel and her team for bringing this forward to us. I wanted to ask General Counsel to confirm that we will be having the opportunity for a workshop in the near future to talk about issues at large regarding the meeting conduct and decorum.
That is correct. So as I indicated at the last meeting, that the purpose of this policy was to address specifically what the board had asked, which is the taking out of the recorded messages, some cleanup, and some other areas that have been brought to our attention, like the titles and subject areas and and just all around cleanup. And so as far as a deeper dive into the policy, it is our intention assuming that this gets adopted, to bring those back around so that the board can do a deeper dive, and including, if it is the board's pleasure, to address some of the issues with decorum and other things that have been raised by the board.
So, General Counsel, if I may, it's my understanding that if we leave it the way it's been published today, we stay on schedule for the recorded messages. But if we add anything, we're going to have a workshop on that first, right? And it's going to hold up the process.
Correct.
All right, Vice Chair Breaux.
Thank you. So I'm not asking for this change today, but I want to make all of you aware that when we do bring it back, many years ago when I used to speak regularly at these meetings, and I mean regularly for more than 10 years, I used to come with three versions of my speech: the 3-minute, the 2-minute, and the 1-minute. Mrs. Andrews remembers those days, that you would come in here, and depending on the number of speakers, the chairman would say, okay, speakers today, you're going to have X number of minutes. So I think that in the future we need to have a conversation to figure out where is our cutoff in terms of numbers. How many minutes do we want the speakers to have? Because these meetings are for the business of the board, right? We want to hear from the public, but going till midnight, when it's not the hours, that's not the problem. The problem is your mental capacity at that point to do the deep dive into the business. If it's hindering our business, then we're either going to have to limit the number of minutes that they get, or figure out if we take a certain number and then take the rest later on. So that's my suggestion. I'm not suggesting we do it today, but I just want to put that on your radar.
Mrs. Andrews.
Thank you, and I do believe this school board has been very generous with the policy as it relates to public comment and how we run our school board meetings. But we know that we've got to get the business done of the school board. I do believe in people having a voice and having their say. I'm just a firm believer. I think all of us are, and I like it when we can do a vote. And when we can do that 2/3 votes to limit the time, I think we just have to take that action. We know how busy our meeting is. And when we see the numbers when we walk in here, we know then that we may have to make that decision quickly, Ms. Braille, and to the board, that we're going to have to change how we do business. I was listening to the State Board of Education meeting the other day, and I know they do not play. They cut you off in about a minute. So many people talking about, the governor and the state board, they don't play. You better get it out quick or you cut off the record. I've never seen us do anything like that here in Palm Beach County. We've been very generous, but right now we're missing the ability to be able to discuss. This is the only time that we get a chance to speak to one another because of how the law reads. I mean, we cannot have conversations in private. So this is our time to do our business, and I like this policy, but when we see our business can't be taken care of in a timely manner, then when we get in here, we're going to have to make those changes quickly so we can do the business of the board. Thank you.
And board members, I'd like also for us to consider at some point when we get to the workshop, all speakers speak at the beginning of the meeting, but during public comment, there are no agenda or non-agenda speakers. You're given the period of time that the board elects to give them, and they cover whatever they're going to cover. So we don't have two chances for people to speak to us. I also think we should do away with the speakers at workshops. The workshops are a time for the district to bring us information so we can figure out what we need to do. People have the opportunity to talk to us before we vote on that because we don't take any action at a workshop other than to receive information. We are backlogged with the number of workshops that we want the administration to provide to us. But the problem is you can't schedule 3 one-hour workshops on a day when you have a board meeting because we don't know how long it's going to take when we get the room filled with people that want to talk to us at the workshop. So hopefully we can discuss that when we do have a workshop on the board policy so that we can actually get information from the administration that we need in order to make decisions on board policy. So I hopefully we can all discuss that later. Is there any other discussion? Dr. Robinson and then Mrs. Andrews.
Thank you. I just want to again express my reservations about people in this climate providing their home address. I know we also have in there the option of their school district number or city of residence, which lowers my concern a bit. And I understand the problem we were trying to solve with that. But a public speaker can just walk up and say, I live in Lake Worth, or I'm in District 3, or they can. So I don't know that really gets us to solving the problem. I think the address will get closer to that, but I have great concerns about people speaking their mind in this climate and giving their home address. I don't have the solution for that, but it just gives me pause. Thank you.
Mrs. Andrews, then Mrs. Whitfield.
The Council of Great City Schools sent us a survey just a few months ago about those 75 largest districts across the country and how they actually run their board meetings. I think probably Ms. Bass has that, and if she can get that back to us again to look at it. One thing I remembered reading was that some districts actually allow public comment before the meeting for an hour. And then, depending on how many people, they kind of time it, and that's it. Once the regular meetings start, the true time is set for the meeting. And that's what I'm really concerned about, that, the conduct in here and the clapping and all of this, we can't get to our work. People are listening at home and wondering what's going on here with the school district of Palm Beach County. I do want to hear your voice, but maybe that's something to think about as we get into our workshop as to a specified time. But when we really get into the business of the meeting, we've heard your comment, let's have our meeting, do our work for the benefit of all of the public so that we can move forward.
Thank you. I just want to say that I do hear you, Dr. Robinson, and I believe Ms. Brillo also made this comment last week about the addresses. I think it would be prudent to take out the address just upon further reflection. I know how so many people told me that they are intimidated to come here to our board meetings right now, and they don't want to share their thoughts even without an address, so I can't imagine an address would work. But I do really support the idea of having a city included in there. I think, for me, I want to know if you're in my area. Like I want to have a feel for who you are and where you're coming from, and if I'm doing a good job representing you. Like that's what I really want to know. So I think we could just adjust this slightly and just have it say city of residence. I think that would be enough for me to feel kind of just a general understanding of if they're a Palm Beach County resident or not, and where within the county they do reside. So I think we could just pop out that little bit that says address and just include city of residence, and I'd be happy with that.
Thank you, Ms. Whitfield. Before I call on Mrs. McQuinn, General Counsel, board members, I don't believe we have enough in the motion that was made. We authorized her to engage outside counsel, but we need to get clarification that she also has the authority to file or join legal challenges and lawsuits. So the maker of that motion was Mrs. Andrews. Do you agree with that modification to your motion?
No, it was me. Yeah, it was me.
Sorry, who?
It was me.
Mrs. Whitfield.
And I'd absolutely make that change. Thank you.
And Ms. Ayala, you seconded that? Mrs. McQuinn? I'm sorry. Yeah. You guys are far down the line, so it's, musical chairs. Okay, so the motion includes that language? Okay, Mrs. McQuinn, go ahead.
I don't want to speak out of place. But right now, we've asked for a workshop. I understand we're going to have a workshop about our school board meetings. So it's my preference that we don't all workshop it now. I feel like we're workshopping it right now. So if we could come back to what we are bringing up tonight, which is the recorded messages. I'd like to just keep this simple.
I agree, Ms. McQuinn. I think the point was just to let the General Counsel's office know if they're going to get a workshop going, some of the items we'd like them to consider discussing at that workshop. Is there any other discussion? We can take a vote on the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. That takes us to BD1. Mrs. Vice Chairwoman Brill.
Thank you. So there seems to be some misunderstanding regarding my discussion item. First of all, I want all of you to know that I am not looking to allow medical letters for all students in opening up the floodgates. So let me be very clear about that. However, we need some language to provide for those instances where a well-documented medical condition that does not fit into the ADA and 504 parameters allows for modification. For example, a mom called me who has 3 children in our school. She's not opposed to masks. 2 of her children can wear them. The other child has a documented serious condition that does not fall into 504 because it does not limit his education, and she will have to withdraw him from school if he cannot wear a face shield as opposed to a mask. Our current policy doesn't allow for him to do so, which leads me to a question I'll ask in another minute or so of our general counsel. When I met with general counsel yesterday, we discussed that not all true medical conditions fall under ADA or 504. Ms. Bernard said that she tried to interject some concerns at our last meeting. Perhaps this is the reason why the other 9 districts are not mirroring our policy language, but rather have modified it. So my suggestion, and it's a suggestion, is to have legal review the language prior to the policy coming back September 1st and recommend some tight restriction that would allow for those rare instances where they need to approve those, the people reviewing those requests will have the ability to approve them. And so I'm going to ask Ms. Bernard if you would please confirm, as discussed, that there are some valid medical issues that may not fall under ADA and 504, and also that when a student, this is my question, when a student is provided with an exemption for wearing a face mask, are we working with the family for the student to use some other face covering where possible? Are we having them wear a face shield? Because I would like all students, regardless, to wear some type of protection. So I want to make sure that when we exempt them, we're just not giving them a blanket exemption, that there is that opportunity, even though a face shield is not as much protection, if they're able to wear one, I want them to do so. So, and I don't know if we can do that unless it's explicit in our policy. So I'm asking Ms. Bernard 2 questions, and I'll leave it, Ms. Bernard.
Sure. So you're correct that not every medical condition limits a major life activity. So not every medical condition would qualify necessarily for an ADA accommodation. With that being said, my understanding of how the teams work is to evaluate what is the best accommodation if the student qualifies for one, to determine what the best accommodation is, and sometimes that does vary. So to answer, I think, your second question, it doesn't necessarily, and it has to be reasonable, so it doesn't always necessarily mean that the accommodation granted is going to be no mask. Sometimes it's a face shield, sometimes it's a clear mask, right? Sometimes it could be positive behavioral reinforcement, such as trying to encourage the student to wear the mask. So it can be a number of things that are part of data points, if you will, that the team will consider and evaluate, and then determine what accommodation is reasonable and what's in the best interest of the student. I hope that answers both of your questions.
Mrs. McQuinn, then back to Vice Chairwoman Brill.
A reason that I voted no to the amendment last week was because we were totally rewriting the recommended policy without, in my mind, that we had adequate time to address it. So I first want to make that clear, and also that twice during that meeting, I said I was in support of the temporary mandate for its students and employees. I don't want to do that again. I don't want to have to keep coming back because we don't have time to read it. I read these, we have 2 main jobs, policy and being financially solvent, and I know that Mr. Burke would disagree with my words there, but it's money and policy. So when I read a policy carefully before we come here, we were changing line after line, and I was uncomfortable with that. So I'm just saying, please, I don't want to do that again. tonight.
Go ahead, Vice Chairwoman Brew.
Thank you. So first of all, Mrs. McQuinn, I appreciate you, and I had no intention of bringing back that policy, so don't worry. I spoke to legal about maybe there's a way that, she can make some recommendations, but the most important part of my comment is that I want to make sure that even when the students have an exemption, that the opportunity for them to wear a face shield or some other covering, it's not only suggested, but that we're trying to do that. Because I don't want any child, and this is where the public I didn't know how to word my discussion item, but what I'm really trying to go for is that every child has some kind of protection on their face. And I want to make sure that that's clear to the families, and I don't know, I'm not a doctor, so maybe there's some odd case that they can't, but at the very least, a face shield might be the way to go. So I'll leave it at that, but that was the purpose of my discussion item, and I just want to make that clear because I couldn't do so before.
Okay, if there's no other discussion on that, the General Counsel's Office suggested that we re-vote on the motion, that the prior motion on the, Ms. Bass, can you restate the motion as it was modified so we can get a re-vote on that?
Motion to authorize the general counsel to hire outside counsel and file or join lawsuits and challenges. Motion by Erica Whitfield, second by Barbara McQuinn.
All right, is there any discussion on that motion as it's been read? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Superintendent, if you have nothing else, I believe, Mrs. Andrews?
Just a point of personal privilege tonight. I just want to say I heard a lot from people in here today, and I want to thank our superintendent, Mr. Michael Burke, and the district's leadership, Mr. Tierney, and all the team and the work you did this week in putting this policy in place for us. I had a chance to call a lot of the principals, and I talked to them personally, and they did a great job, and they're still doing a great job trying to take care of students. And when we heard about these instances in here today, I just know that I believe in teachers and principals trying to work with all of our children. And this is hard for the parents, but there's so many options. I don't want to lose anybody in Palm Beach County School District, but this is a mandate, and we've got to keep everybody safe. And the Hope Scholarship, the virtual school processes out there, homeschooling. There's so many other options. I don't want any kid to be upset, but I just tell you, I was really excited to know, and I know this from the years of being in the school district, that our principals are awesome, our teachers are awesome, and this team here, you all did it this week, because I was scared, and I didn't know what was going to happen on the first day and on the second day, and now we're on the third day, and everybody's still trying to work together. I just want to encourage you to continue to work together, and Mr. Burke, your team, just continue to be patient and work through this. We know that our goal is to keep all the children safe, so I just want to put this special thank you out to you all. We see what you're doing. We appreciate it. We care about all the children, and we want to work with all these parents too, but we've got to get this mandate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Andrews. And the superintendent indicates he has nothing else. I just want to follow up on Mrs. Andrews and thank another group that were here tonight. And I want to thank our police officers. I know the board puts you in a difficult situation tonight, but I appreciate your assistance in us keeping this meeting, civil and under control. If there's nothing else, we'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mrs. Andrews, second by Mrs. Whitfield. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.